friends and viewers. Thank you for visiting the Faith Factor website. Today, I have the opportunity and the pleasure of interviewing someone very special. He is my husband and the author of the Faith Factor, the Art and Science of Faith. And this is a copy of the book we have here. Steve, thank you so much for letting me do this interview with you. I know that you will share your heart and your soul as you give insight into how you came about writing this book and as you share a bit of your life's journey. I also want to congratulate you on such a monumental achievement. I say thanks to God who has made this possible, and thanks to our 4 wonderful children who've stood by us all the way and who have been every bit a part of this journey. So Steve, a good question I think I should ask you is, what is faith?
If we want to determine what faith is, we probably all have some form of definition. There's something about intrigue, some uncertainty, courage, achieving some end in a time of challenge. The person who is the master of faith thousands of years ago gave us clues as to what our definition of faith should include. And he gave it in an example of a seed becoming a tree. I didn't understand that definition before, but now, having taken this journey, I'm able to appreciate the definition of faith to fit with elements of a seed being transformed into a tree.
That sounds simple enough. Okay, so we talked about what is faith. Now, why did you write a book on faith?
I was at a point in my life where faith did not mean much to me. Once an advocate, an enthusiast, the challenges of life, the burdens, the expectations I had of what faith would have done in my life, those weren't forthcoming. So I was doing a job that I was not happy about. I couldn't see it taking me anywhere, really. So I was at the corner, with ends corner, at a loss. And one night while I was working, I heard on the inside, write a book on faith. I had a reaction. It would not have been my thoughts. Faith wasn't something I was anxious to share about. So why and how could I write about faith when faith means nothing to me? While I was questioning the idea of writing a book on faith, I heard on the inside again, I will write it for you. The way I interpreted that was that God was speaking to me. And he was saying to me, write on something you do not know about. And I am going to write it for you. It sounds like an impossible task, but it was so much out of my hands that I was simply saying to him, well, if that's what you're saying you're going to do, I'll do it.
Okay, we've been married for 27 years and you just shared with us some of your big challenges with faith and some more, right? What is so unique or different then as you present faith in the Faith Factor?
Shortly after I had that assignment, my mind was blank. What I understood is that I was going to have no commentaries. I would not be using books that were on the topic of faith. I was a critic of faith myself. So that was objective enough. I understood also all my tools would be versions of the Bible, verses wherever faith was mentioned, a concordance, the Greek, and Hebrew to understand the meaning of words, and a dictionary, a Bible dictionary, so I could understand the context in which words were used. Like, for instance, the mustard seed, whether it was a tree, was it a shrub, things like that. And from that point, it came to me at some point, the idea of faith being a law. Now, I read it somewhere in passing. It's Romans 3:27. So I went to that passage, and there wasn't much really, but that was the beginning of where the book was heading. Then the thought came to me, Hebrews chapter 11. So I looked at that, and the definition says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So from the perspective of a law, I was beginning to see that definition of faith, the elements or factors that would give us an equation. Faith equals substance into hope. Faith equals evidence into things unseen. It was there now, those things that I read before, that I'd become accustomed to, that became relatively meaningless, those things began to come aflame, ablaze, and my mind was beginning to spin and turn. It's like, wow. I was becoming aware of the concept of invisible reality, like the seed becoming a tree. That's about 5% of what we see. But the reality that's causing the transformation, that's about 95%. Like when you hit the on button on a computer, you press the on button, you see information coming on the screen, but there's a lot of operations in the background, all the technology, maybe thousands, millions of bits, lots of operations and functions. So I was beginning to see miracles, but looking at the invisible reality aspect of it. And that is what I think makes this book interesting, at least to me, because it's helping me to have that insight of a miracle that I never really saw before.
Mm-hmm.
I was intrigued.
Great. We grew up in Trinidad. You may detect that from our accents. We're Trinidadians. You had wonderful parents. You lived in the city. I know your dad had acres of land, so you had the opportunity of living in the city, of going to the countryside and enjoying nature, and I know you are a nature lover. One thing stands out particularly, and it's in relation to faith, when you were 11 years old. Can you share that with us?
In Trinidad, at around age 11, between 11 and 12, there's the common entrance exam at the time, where students are placed into secondary schools. So I did my exam, and after that, it occurred to me, whenever I prayed during school time, to say, God, thank you for passing the exam. I attended a Christian school, so we prayed a short prayer 4 times a day, and I would do that daily. It went on for months until the results came in the newspaper. Having prayed sincerely, being expectant, turned to the pages, my name was not there. And as a kid, I was disappointed. Also for my parents, because I wanted them to have that joy, even though they didn't show any signs of disappointment. Mm-hmm. But I kept that in my heart. And when I returned to school, strangely, would you believe, I continued saying, Lord, I thank you, I passed my exam. And I did it 4 times, day in, day out. That continued for 2 weeks. And I got a call, I got a letter saying, you got a placement in Tranquility Government Secondary School. Wow. Where I will meet great friends like Roland Shepherd. So only now in my life, after I've gone through understanding faith as a law, am I able to see the significance of what I was doing as a kid. Where did I get the idea of saying thanks? How did that come to me? Where did I get the courage to say it after the results came? I was simply doing what I was told. Simply saying, Lord, I thank you that I passed my exam. Had I looked at the results, I would have been so disappointed. I may not have said anything to God anymore. But there in my heart, there was that hearing. Say, God, I thank you. And I understand that to be invisible reality in operation. I was not looking at the result. I was looking on the inside. I was hearing on the inside. And while I was doing my bit, without any sense of worry, I had no idea of placements, whether there was such an accommodation. No clue. But I had no worry. Simply doing what I did. That insignificant act was accruing in the world of invisible reality. It was securing my placement until it materialized. I see it as a law now, and that's amazing. But I can't take the credit. All I could say is that I was hearing. That's marvelous.
Well, that's interesting because you were 11 years old, and so much, your experience has so much been realized even at this age, after how many years? You know, it has been realized, and indeed we could see that God was guiding you in that area of faith. And there's some things that we have to learn, and there's some things we have to also unlearn in between that time. Now, we have been living in Canada for 17 years now, and we had many great hurdles. And I'm sure you have great hurdles too. There was a time, Steve, when you had to choose family over career. I know you love God, but I know you also questioned His love at some points in your life. And there was a time when you told me, Jean, faith isn't working for me. You said to me, I can't dream anymore. I've lost hope. Could you tell us about what happened during that time, a bit of what happened?
I was using the formula of faith as I knew it. During a 15-year period, I was going on a curve that I describe as downward sloping. Over that period of time, the concepts I had on faith was being challenged, and the sense of what it meant, that was beginning to dissolve or to fade. And over that period of 15 years, I came to what I call a 0 point. I was sitting in the dust and the ashes. The hearing that I was expecting, the results I was expecting from the hearing, things weren't materializing. So I did a degree, I did a diploma, I did a certificate, I did all sorts of jobs. What was happening? I was maturing, beginning to look at retirement when assets are supposed to be in place, and I'm on the depleting end. So my question was, where is God? Where is His love? Remember, I've put my family first. I've had integrity in the way life would be. I was doing what I think God wanted me to do, but where is it taking me? And so as I sat in that place, I'd lost the ability to dream. And that's a dangerous place to come. It's a place I hoped I would have never arrived at. I had no thought that I would have ended there. So in that environment where hope didn't make sense, I remember Jean buying me a book on hope by a very famous author. And my question is, I'm going to hear great things, but what is it going to do for me? What I did not realize is that there was a hand that was guiding me in a way that was contrary. My concept of faith. God was bringing me to that place. I remember one day while I was doing the book, I was in the kitchen and I got that hearing similar to write a book. I got that on the inside saying, I have brought you to this country, and for the past 15 years I have ordered your steps, and I have brought you to this place in your life so that you could understand faith in this way. That was amazing. That was explosive. Think of a soul that was stressed. A person who had lost hope, disillusioned, who couldn't see the goodness of God, His love, His faithfulness, couldn't understand what was happening in that situation. Here on the inside I'm hearing this same God saying to me, I have ordered your steps, and I've brought you to this place to understand faith from this dimension, this aspect. And when I think of it, it gives me the opportunity to share with you what we as a family have gone through, what we've experienced. Faith as a law, and sitting in that place of nothingness. God has amazing things to say to us. Sometimes we are in a challenging place. That's where I was finding myself, when things weren't making sense. But that which does not make sense, when I understand the law of faith, I understand that God is leading us in the chaos. He's mapping us into a destiny of a new dimension of unthinkable possibilities by a law that He created and He wants us to participate in. So I was not hearing what I should have heard, in the sense I was hearing, but the results weren't forthcoming. So I am saying what I was confused. But there's a time when He would order us in a certain way, and we have to trust Him, because He makes sense out of nonsense.
That's great. I find it very encouraging, because I know you day in and day out. I don't know all your thoughts, but I saw you under so much stress and pressure. I saw when your ego felt crushed, and because you did so many jobs, so many different things you did, so many things we tried, and everything seemed to fail, and it's like, God, what are you doing? So it was quite a frustrating, those were many frustrating experiences. You talked about faith as a science. You mapped out in Hebrews 11, you talk about how faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So that, and you kind of brought an equation, which is a very interesting way of presenting faith, and which I see has proven itself as from an 11-year-old boy into being the man that you are today. Now, what is your encouragement to people as the author of the Faith Factor?
One of the interesting things I've found about faith is that when we come to God with our doubts and our fears, that is faith. Once I thought we have to come believing, but I sat in the place where I did not know how to believe. And so my heart was broken and open, and God came to me. Enoch walked with God. How did he find out about God? It was God who came to him and helped him. Abraham, a man of faith, how did he know? God had to help him. How did he know that God is a rewarder? God said to him, Abraham, I am your exceedingly great reward. So the idea of me trying to reach out to do things that would please this God, I discovered in the ashes of my life that He, God, comes to us He comes to me and he comes to you in that crisis. And so if you would listen, as we open our hearts, he says, that's faith. You come to me, that's faith. You respond to me in that disillusionment. Doubts are our friends. Our fears that are real. Those are things we have learned that we have to open up. We have to be able to accept and say, God, this is how I feel. Help me. Help me to believe. Show me how. And he speaks. So I want to encourage us. I want to encourage you that faith is simply coming to God as we are in all the disillusionment. And we tell him, why do I have this disease? Why did I lose my job? Why is my situation broken? Why is it so much trouble in my circumstances? What about the finances? And God speaks there in the nothingness, in the confusion. And as we empty those fears and doubts, we're opening our souls, we're releasing so that we can be filled with something that he's going to say to us. And that I find to be marvelous and really helpful, but I understood it only when I looked at faith as a law. I want to encourage you, faith, as Jesus said, is a seed becoming a tree. It's built into a seed to become a tree. There's built into you a destiny that's unstoppable. But it comes in a place of chaos. If you look at the seed, it doesn't remain polished. It goes through a change. And in our lives, we misunderstand the crisis. We believe that faith means everything is going to be well. But we have to learn to use the machine of faith. And God used faith when there was nothing. In the beginning, there was nothing. And he spoke it into existence. So in chaos is an amazing place. I mean, we don't want to be there. But when we understand it, our destiny will flourish and blossom. Faith is a law that moves from one dimension to the other. And God has matched every crisis. He has reconciled all things to himself. That's what I was able to see. So for every crisis, he has provided a resolution through the cross. And your circumstance, the impossible, there is the possible. Faith is the law that we use to move from that place to the other. It's a science, it's mathematical, it's measurable. We can discern it as we begin to understand what it means. And it's also an art. Like when you learn to play cricket, or whatever game you're playing an instrument. You begin to acquire, you do the mechanics, you do the basics, you fumble around, but after a while, you're going to move. You're going to be smooth. You're going to be a marvel. And that's the art of faith. When we think of Jesus being the author and finisher of our faith, he's perfecting it. But he puts us in places where faith is challenged. I had my time, and I share this to encourage you. Faith is a science, it's an art, it's a law, an unstoppable law that hooks not only a seed to a tree, but it connects the impossible with the possible. And we're walking away from science as we know it today, and technology. It's going beyond. Faith is able to connect nothing to something. That's how God created the universe. Nothing. You know, we probably have a situation that's going bad, and we could build from a bad situation to a better one. But when we have nothing, all we're going to find there is God. All we're going to hear there is God. And when we hear his voice, we're going to respond, and the impossible becomes possible.
That was great, actually. And we do know that God is true to his word. With faith, all things are possible. Amen. We want to thank you viewers and friends for taking the time to share this experience with us. This has been our story and we know you have your story. And you can contact us by email when you visit our website, www.thefaithfactor.ca. And on that website, you get some helpful information that will certainly enrich your life. So again, thank you so much for watching. And remember, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing shall be impossible to you.